Welcome back, everybody, to Comic Shop Talk on the Late Night Collectors community. And today, this is a very special episode. If you guys are tuning in for this one, this is the episode that we're recording between like the Christmas and New Year's break for you guys. And if we were to continue doing this show in the future, I think this might be a fun thing to do to kind of highlight some of the best things that we've read this past year of comics. Like a little award show of sorts to kind of highlight some things and maybe something we didn't love as much as well, right? Yeah. Everyone knows I like lists. Like we do the year-end media review over on our sister channel there, the Late Night Chat Network. Me and JT, we always do the year-end media review shows where we talk about our favorite, TV, movies, and music and podcasts that things came out this past year. And since this is a show about comics, I figure, what the hell? Let's talk about maybe some of our favorite comics that came out this past year. Because looking at the list, I got some stats here for you, Chris. This year on the show, and I actually did the homework here, and if I were to do this again next year, I would actually try to keep track a lot, like during the year, as opposed to last minute. Over the course of this past year, and this counts as like one shots, maybe one issue that we tried and we didn't continue on with every single thing we read. There was 158 individual issues that I read, like different series on the show this past year. Chris,
a lot of comics.
You read 146 individual issues on the show this past year of different. Yeah. So there's a lot of things there. And that counts as, like I said, like if it's like an annual mini series. So like, it seems like a lot more than it is, but yeah, a lot of things were read this past year on the show, guys. 51 episodes. So
yeah, that's just stuff we talk about.
That's right. That's right. So just to kind of go to show you like all the things that we read this past year, and I got the list here, man. I got some other stats that I'll disperse throughout the show here for you guys about maybe some of like our favorite things just by the numbers, right? For that matter. So
I got the numbers.
Yeah, I got that stuff right here. I got all the information here for you guys. So yeah, this will be a fun one. So yeah, we're going to go through a bunch of categories here. If we're to do this again, we'll definitely fine tune it, maybe add some things, maybe drop some things, see how it goes. But yeah, we kind of made the effort, very last minute this week to kind of put this stuff together here for you guys. So we'll try our best to highlight some things for you guys here that we liked this past year. So, all right, well, let's start out with a big one here. This was probably one of my hardest categories I found this year when doing this. And that's favorite artist of the year.
Favorite artist right off the bat. Okay.
Yeah, let's just start off with the big one. Do you want to take the lead here, or you want me to go first on this one? We'll go back.
Well, I'm not big on all the artist names and all that, but there are some honorable mentions. There's like Stegman. Yeah. He was a big one. Gleason, he was a big one for me. Mm-hmm. And these are like artists that are doing, I guess, writing or drawing the series. Because, there's all the cover artists. We can talk about them later, but yes. For me, the best one had to be, what's his name? George Jimenez from Batman. He made me read Fear State when that was a freaking lousy ass story. And, I'd buy it just for that art. And then, with the new writer there, it just jacked it up. That's what my favorite artist was for this year. If I could get him on Spider-Man right now, that'd be jackpot. But who'd you have?
Man, good on you. That was one of so yeah. So if we're gonna go, like, I have some honorable mentions for some of these categories too. I mean, with the artist list is there's a lot, but like I'm gonna try to slim it down on the honorable mentions for you guys here. But I maybe got about like 10 of them here. So these are all great this year for me. Daniel Warren Johnson, of course, on Duo Powerbomb, is Ryan Stegman on the few issues of Vanish, even with him, and he did a little short story on Amazing Fantasy 1000, as well as on that. That other issue that came out, like another anthology issue that just came out recently, he did a little short story on of Spider-Man. So yeah, he did great job this year. Wes Craig, between his new series he started, Kea and Deadly Class. Bruno Redondo, the artist on Nightwing, one of my favorite series. Of course, I had to put him on this list because like when he does the little those double page acrobatic kind of scenes with Nightwing, he kills it. Sean Murphy on Beyond Batman, Beyond the White Knight, always a contender for me. Great artist, great artist. Mahmoud Asrar, who just currently is working on Batman versus Robin, but earlier in the year he was drawing Conan with Jason Aaron, another great artist in my. Chris Somney on Firepower, amazing fucking artist. Dan Mora, Batman Superman World's Finest, he's been killing it. Marco Cicchetto on Devil's
Reign. Yeah, I was going to say Cicchetto for sure.
Absolutely. And Jeff Darrow, just for bringing out a book this year, the guy who draws Shaolin Cowboy, one of the most detailed artists.
Like, I haven't read the Shaolin Cowboy, but from you talked and what you've shown, I thought that was great stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. So really,
number one
out of all those honorable mentions, all great artists, man. This was my hardest category, honestly, that I put together. I put it down to two artists here that I had it down to, but I'm not going to pick both clearly. And I'm not gonna lie, I could pull a lateral move and pick the other one because you just picked Jorge Jimenez, but that was also my fucking pick, actually. Wow. Because you know what I will say about this guy? I mean, I looked up what he did this year. Other than covers, he did about several issues of Batman since Zdarsky started. So he did enough issues for me to consider him as number one. And not only that, he is the quintessential great looking superhero comic book artist. Like, we're going to see what he does on Nemesis Reloaded. I'm sure it's going to look amazing as well. That's it is kind of like a superhero book as well. It's like a villain book, really. Nemesis is a villain in that, but like, and I'm sure it's gonna look great still too. But like, honestly, like, you put this guy on a big 2 fucking superhero title, it's gonna sing. Like you said, like if they put this guy on Spider-Man or anything else after Batman, like I love his style, man, of art. Like it's and not everybody works on indie type books. These artists, sometimes you try to put indie artists into this big 2 superhero stuff, and it doesn't really work all necessarily, right? I mean, it may look good, but it doesn't maybe fit the feel. But this is like one of the best looking Batman books I've ever seen. This guy that's been drawing this past.
Well, what other artist put in that freaking honorable mention list? That Serge Sakova or something?
Yes, Steven Segovia.
Segovia. Yeah, he's killed it. He did the Hellions back there. I was just reading. He killed it over on Spawn, or he does one of the Spawn titles. And anything he draws, I'm happy to read too.
My second pick, though, that was neck and neck with him, that, like I said, if I really wanted to be cheap out and kind of do the lateral move here and go and say, oh, well, Chris said him, I don't have to pick him either as well. I'm surprised out of all these artists, though, we picked the same one. Was Greg Smallwood on Human Target, though. He's also fantastic. And I feel like his style is unlike anybody else right now doing it. But I think that book is very tailor-made for his style. Whereas, like I said, like if you were to put him on a main kind of superhero title, it's still going to look great, but is it going to feel like, you know what I mean? Like, it feel as good as seeing Jorge Jimenez on Batman? Probably not. So I ultimately went with him on Batman as well. There you go, Chris. Wow, I'm surprised you both picked him right out the gate, but he killed it. He killed it this year, man. Like, we just talked about Batman a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed even at the visuals in that book. Yeah, it's awesome. And I remember when he was doing Fear State, although that was at the end of last year on Fear State.
Yeah.
His design of the Scarecrow in that book alone, I was just like, who is this fucking guy? Do you remember the way he made Scarecrow look in that book?
Everything was great back then.
Yeah.
Except the story.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, so there you go, guys. Wow, both of our favorite artists for 2022 is Jorge Jimenez. But we both mentioned lots of great honorable mentions for artists this year. A lot of great artists out there, and that's what it's all about when it comes to comics, right? So, all right, next up, our favorite writer of the year. This was also a close one for me, Chris. And since you went first on the last one, I'm going to go ahead and do this one first here. So again, honorable mentions. Rick Remender, he wrote all these great Image books that I love, and he's always a favorite of mine. Donny Cates, although I feel Donny Cates suffered from the fact that he ended up stepping away from a lot of his books towards the end of the year. He wasn't really putting out as much work, but I felt he started the year off extremely strong, and he's still doing a great job on Vanish, but I couldn't give it to him. Jerry Duggan, the writer of X-Men, and he writes a bunch of other things too for Marvel. Great. He just wrote that first issue of Iron Man. He's a great writer. I love Jerry Duggan's stuff. Jed MacKay, a great up-and-coming writer. I read almost everything this guy does, honestly. Like, I think he's gonna, once they start giving him a shot at some bigger characters, I think it's gonna pay off. Like, he's slowly getting there. He's writing the Black Cat books. He's doing like the Clea Doctor Strange book. He's doing things like this, but like, I think if they put him like on a bigger title in the next year, I'm really looking for it. Moon Knight he's doing, but I think they need to put him on like a Thor or an Iron Man or a Spider-Man or something like that, right? I know he was one of the revolving writers on the Spider-Man Beyond era with Ben Reilly, which, his issues weren't bad, but we just weren't a big fan of Ben Reilly throughout.
Yeah, I think he was freaking
Yeah.
He was strung up by the stories there.
Tom King, always a favorite of mine, but I didn't love everything he put out this year. And Jason Aaron, I didn't read all Avengers this year, but you know, he's been writing The Punisher lately. He's nowhere as you know, near as good of a writer. I think in previous years he was been my favorite writer for years and years and years. I just wasn't reading everything I feel like he was putting out this year, and I'm not as interested in everything he was doing. So for that matter, but he's still in the mix. I think Punisher I've been really enjoying lately, so I had to put him on the list, and some of the Avengers stuff as well. But ultimately it was down to two writers for me, and that was Tom Taylor and Chip Zdarsky, and I'm gonna give the edge. I'm going to give the edge to Chip Zdarsky on this one, and I'll tell you why. So the big titles that we read from him this year, that he did all the Daredevil stuff, The Devil's Reign, you know, Daredevil Woman Without Fear miniseries. He was the new writer on Batman for the last several issues. And then he also did Batman the Night, which I thought was a great miniseries about the starting of Batman as well. And some other things as well, I'm sure I'm missing here. But he also did Public Domain, which I thought was a very strong indie title through Image Comics that, you know, I checked out not knowing. I thought it was actually going to be about its own superhero universe of sorts, but it actually was a very personal story about, it felt like, of, you know, the comic industry and maybe like in family and everything else. Like it really took me for surprise, that series. And not only did he write it, he also drew it. So I think for that matter, I'm going to go with him over Tom Taylor, because not only did he kill it in the big two this year, he made Batman good again after it dropping off in quality. Daredevil was extremely consistent, whether or not it was always making my favorite of the week. It was consistent the whole year through, in and out of relaunches and everything else. And it's very, very good at the moment, I feel like. And yeah, like I said, Public Domain and Batman the Night was also a great Batman series as well. So you know, in my mind, I got to give it to Chip Zdarsky, just because he's making moves. He's working at both companies. He's making books good as a result of being on them all of a sudden now. And he's got a different voice for all of these titles. I feel like it's hard to peg him down and say like, oh, this sounds like a Chip Zdarsky book, right? Tom Taylor, I love fucking Tom Taylor. I would say some of the books that he came out with this year, Deceased, Nightwing, Dark Knights of Steel, Dark Ages, individually, a lot of those issues I probably have loved more than a lot of the Chip Zdarsky stuff. But I think Chip Zdarsky has just been more consistent this year, so I think I got to give it up to him for my favorite writer of the year. But it was a close, and you know, and Tom Taylor has the he's lucky enough to have all these Elseworld type books, right? Like Chip Zdarsky's going on main fucking title books and you know what I mean, and changing them. And like Batman was not good before he came and jumped on the book, right? It was not that great. And then he's on the book and I'm loving the book, right? So yeah, got to give it to Zdarsky. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, well, a lot of the names there that you put out there, I'm down with too, like Donny Cates.
Yeah.
Love his stuff. You know, I'm not so big on like knowing the artist names or the writers' names, but I'm down with Jed McKay. I'm down with Zeb Wells, that's writing Spider-Man now.
Sorry, I forgot to say him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you know, I was pretty sure that we'd have the same one for the writer too, because I'm down with Chip Zdarsky. You know, I'm down with all the stuff that Tom Taylor does, but he does Elseworld tales where he can pull from anything. He can do anything he wants with these people. But Chip's living in the real world, and he's got to play with the right rules. And you know, the stuff he's done with Daredevil and the stuff he's doing with Batman, can't go wrong.
Wow. There you go, guys. We had the same favorite writer as well. I swear this isn't a cop-out. I mean, but, you know, we do share some of the same taste when it comes to a lot of the things we talk about. But
it is good stuff, though.
But I was about to say, not only that, though, he's just had a killer year.
Yeah, like he's doing everything. You know, he's on two big titles in both Marvel and DC. You know, like they're not going to get a chump to do that.
No, this was his year. I mean, like I said, the only person I think that came close was Tom Taylor for me, because I have so much fun with his books. But yeah, Zdarsky's year for sure, hands down.
Yeah, the same thing, but he just does Elseworld stuff where he can do anything, and like, you know, like that DC, whatever, Deceased. You know, it's some crazy ass stuff, but you can't pull that into the real world or like in the mainstream continuity. I gotta freaking work on that word, but anyways.
Yeah. No, you're right. All right, next up. Yeah, go Chip. All right, Chris, over to you for this one. This is favorite ongoing series of the year.
I got to throw out there freaking Amazing Spider-Man. I don't care. That's it.
Yeah.
If I only had to buy one comic, it'd be Spider-Man. But Thor, Hulk, for all of them out there, like you say, you know, we're trying to cut down these freaking lists, and I can't just because I like them all.
Yeah. Yep. This is getting crazy now. Also, Amazing Spider-Man. Listen, we've said it on this show before, guys. There's a certain handful of characters that we really love, and when the books are good, and you got to sing their praises because they're not always good consistently forever. And sometimes you get stuck with continuing to have to read a title just because you're so interested in that character, even through the good and the bad. We started this year off still in the Beyond era of Spider-Man. Let's not forget, right? Yeah, and that is what both of us. That's one of our favorite characters. We ended out the year. It started out the year with the end of the Beyond era, and once that dropped off, and when they relaunched the book, it has been consistently one of my favorite titles, and definitely one of the most my favorite ongoing titles. So that's why I had to pick it for this category. I mean, I could have picked a few different things for this one to be fair, but whenever Spider-Man comes out, it's at the top of my stack, and that's a major indicator of like that's the book that I'm always looking forward to. It may not be always my favorite of the week, but it's what I look forward to the most. And when these books are good, when Batman's good, when Amazing Spider-Man is good, when like some of my favorite characters' books are good, I'm gonna keep singing their praises, like Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, so it was a very good year, and shame on me, I forgot to put Zeb Wells on my list because this guy only kind of does one series at a time. Like all these other writers we mentioned do like 5-6 series, right? So, but like he's double shipping for the most part, Amazing Spider-Man, but he's locked in and he's been doing a great job. So yeah, Chris, I'm glad you mentioned him as your on your honorable mentions for favorite writers because Zeb Wells did a great job too. Prior to this, he did Hellions, which is also fucking awesome, right? So like. He's a good writer, this guy. He writes for TV as well, Zeb Wells. So, yeah, no, he's a great writer. So, yeah. All right. Next up, we got favorite miniseries. And for that one I had to ultimately go with Do a Powerbomb. This started and finished in 2022, 7-issue miniseries. I continue to sing its praises on the show. It made many of my favorites of the week. Great art on it. One of the best artists out right now, Daniel Ward Johnson, as I mentioned him in my honorable mentions earlier. And when it came to miniseries, this was like at the top of my list. I don't even really have any other honorable mentions for miniseries written down in front of me. I'm sure I could go through the list and pick out a bunch, but like I had to find a spot for this book on my list. So ultimately it kind of fell into the miniseries slot because that's what it was. So yeah, I had to include it.
And yeah, for miniseries too, that was a tough one. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to go with Deceased. I know it's not over yet, but I'm just loving that one. And being the third one out of the series, I think like there's been 2 or 3 before this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Deceased, yeah, and it's still freaking crushing it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's a great book. Yeah, that's a good answer for that one. All right, so Deceased for favorite miniseries. Here's some stats for you guys here to break it up a little bit. So favorite of the week by the numbers here for me. Can you guess what I picked as the most favorite of the week this year, Chris?
So Do a Powerbomb?
Tied with Amazing Spider-Man. 5 favorites of the week with Amazing Spider-Man.
Well, that's it, but Spider-Man's got like freaking 20 issues.
Right.
Or no, well, 12, 24 issues.
Right.
Do a Powerbomb had 6 issues, but 5 of them are number 1.
7 issues, but 5 number 1. Yeah, so there you go. They were my favorite of the week. So yeah, there you have it, right? So exactly, that goes to show you right there. So so 2 titles at the top of my list for favorite of the week were Amazing Spider-Man and Do a Powerbomb, 5 favorites of the week each. And then coming in at second place, we have Deadly Class. I picked that 3 times as favorite of the week, as well as Nightwing 3 times this past year as favorite of the week. So that tracks, I think, for both of those. And then coming in for third place, we got a 4-way tie for 2 picks each. That's Dark Knights of Steel, A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance, another recommender book, Batman Beyond the White Knight, And surprisingly, because of the fact that we literally just talked about the finale of this book, Dark Crisis got the first 2 issues, got my favorite of the week when it first came out. And unfortunately, it did not end the same way it started up. So I don't love that stat. I understand the rest of them, but that one doesn't reflect that well. Those are small weeks, I think, when that one came out.
Maybe it's a small week there.
Okay, Chris, how about you? What do you think was your, well, you had the list. I sent it to you, but what do you think, if you had to guess, was your most favorites of the week?
I don't know, man. I'm all over the place, so it's hard to say for me. I have no idea.
Okay, so for Chris, guys, it was number 1 was Amazing Spider-Man. 8 favorites of the week.
8. 8. I'm liking that.
That's great.
Liking that series more and more now.
There you go. 8 favorites of the week. And I think several of them were post Beyond era, if I'm not mistaken. So that was, I think we both had issue 85 as our favorite of the week earlier on in the year. And then after that, it was all the new series. So yeah, which the 85 was the Beyond era issue. It must have been towards the end of it, I think. And then coming in on second place, you have a 3-way tie for 3 picks, favorite of the weeks each. Technically, you know, this one you could maybe count as the highest, though, is you have 3 picks of Avengers Forever, but you also picked Avengers once and Avengers Assemble once. And since it's all kind of connected, I kind of threw those together for you. So, but 3 Avengers Forever and then 1 for the other 2 Avengers books that Jason Aaron was doing. 3 for Thor and 3 for Catwoman for favorites of the week this year.
Nice.
So,
I'm surprised that I enjoyed Catwoman that much.
Yeah, so that, I think that was a little earlier on in the run for most of these picks, but still, like, yeah, I think it was like the early 40s you were picking those up for Catwoman, and we just obviously talked about issue 50, right? So, and then for third place, you have a 4-way tie as well for 2 picks each for favorites of the week. You got Hulk, Immortal X-Men,
yep,
Dark Knights of Steel,
of course,
and Deceased, War of the Undead Gods. There you go. Fucking right.
Good stuff, that Deceased.
And yeah, and then everything from there is all just once that we picked a bunch of things, right? We don't have to get into all that, but there you go. So next up, Chris, back over to you. Actually I did you did miniseries, right? First. So yeah, so favorite cover. I'm interested to see what Chris has to say, but let me see if I can share my screen here. There was a few contenders for me, but I only went with covers I actually picked up this year. I don't pick up a lot of the other interesting covers like BC covers that they come out with. I know Chris tends to do that quite a bit more than I do. There was some I went out of my way to get this year, but this is one that stuck with me, and I'm surprised because I thought it was going to be like a more of a cheap cover, even though there was a couple of contenders for the cheesecakey ones too, but ultimately I went with this. Let me just bring it up here for you guys. And that's Amazing Spider-Man Beyond 86. This cover right here, which is a fucking John Romita Jr. cover, but I just love the image of him getting found in the spiders, like while he's on top of the roof. It reminds me of Kraven's Last Hunt. And again, this was also surprisingly during the Beyond era, but
but probably had nothing to do with the story that was going on. But anyways, that's besides the point. It's a great cover though.
Yeah, I just love I love the cover for this one. So that made my favorite cover of the year for me. And I would say runners up though for me were J. Scott Campbell's Batman Beyond the White Knight variant that he did for issue 5, where he had Harley kind of sitting on a wall. That was a highlight for me. And then also the Harley Quinn issue 21 Killing Joke variant, where she kind of did like the Killing Joke kind of camera sideways. And and Punisher number 1, Goran Parlov had a cover where hold on, let me
the bullet going through the vest or something, and you kind of see through it. That is a nice one.
And then you could see him in the foreground, like kind of through the vest. Yeah, so those were all contenders for me, but for whatever reason, this one kind of this one here. This one kind of spoke to me the most, the Spider-Man one, surprisingly. This was a close second, though. I almost picked the Punisher one, which I thought was also really good. So, but yeah, so I kind of just went with ones that I did pick up, though, not ones that I saw because there's so many great covers that I could have picked out this year. So I kind of tried to make it the rule that I had to have also picked up the cover that I ended up picking, right? So how about you, Chris? I'm interested to hear what you got to say for this one.
Well, there's a ton of covers to go through. There's like any Art Germ cover, any Alex Ross cover. Like those are the two big. There's this Ivan Tao guy, awesome covers. But he did mention the cover that I did choose.
Oh,
because when I saw this cover, this is one of the only covers. Like when I got it in my hands and looked at the cover, it was even better. And it might be a bit cheesecakey, but it is the Harley Quinn.
Nice.
But the picture of this doesn't do it justice. When you open this up and you look at this cover on its own, it's great. Like, the Alex Ross ones are great, but those are all just paintings. Like this J. Scott Campbell, it is J. Scott Campbell, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a freaking comic book cover.
Yeah.
Our comic book art, that's just through the roof there. Hey, like, I don't know, it's got that whatever the background is matte finish and the other is shiny, or it's the other way around. But there's a lot of contenders there. There's like some of the swimsuit issues for DC. Yeah. Marvel had a whole bunch out there. Can't go wrong. There's a ton of covers, but that like you said, that's one that stuck out of my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned it. Cause like I said, it was in the running for mine as well. So that's awesome that you picked that one. Yeah. That's great.
I'm not sure if there's that Batman homage to the Spider-Man, whatever. I don't know if that was this year though, or not. I'd have to look into that. Cause that would have been my second one if it came out this year.
One of the
Batman 119 or something.
Yeah, one of the ones that was a contender for me as well that I didn't mention was the DC versus Vampires Killers #1, which had the McFarlane vampire like cape one, like that was like his McFarlane Batman cover that he did with the cape. That one was sick too, with Brett Booth and Jonathan Glapion on inks on that cover. That made it look like
like the DC versus Vampire covers were killer. She-Hulk covers. Like the DC versus Vampires, like freaking almost every other variant cover was.
Well, that Harley one, the Harley one you showed a couple of weeks ago was fucking fire. That one, yeah, that one was crazy. That was a bang.
Yeah, like they're all crazy there, but that's.
Yeah. So there you go.
That one just jumped out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great pick. All right, so Chris, favorite single issue of the year.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is the one. But this might have came out in like January of this year.
It counts.
I think it's Dark Knights of Steel #3.
That might be December. I think 4 came out then. I don't know. Hold on. It's cutting it close for sure. Dark Knights of Steel #3. No,
I did check. It was like January 6th. It was the first week of January. If that's the one where Superman freaking, kind of reveals himself to be the bad guy.
No. Okay. So it's not 3. I think this was your first 5 you've ever given on the show. I have this here. So
that's the one then. I thought it was 3, but it might be
4. I think it's 4.
Okay, issue 4. I'm in for sure.
Hold on. I'll tell you in 1 second here. You have it here. Chris. Dark Knights of Steel 5 came out March 2nd.
Okay, 5, even better.
That was yes.
That was one of the only that was like a holy shit moment.
Yes.
In the series.
Yeah.
And I've seen other stuff, like that Spider-Man #1. It could have been that when he opens up and there's that pit, but they've never explained it since then. So I've even forgotten that things happened.
Yeah.
But
great pick. That was definitely in the running for my favorite single issue as well this year, honestly, because that had one of the best like reactions I've had reading a comic this year. And it's one of the 3 comics that Chris gave a 5 rating to this year, guys. So yeah, I can speak for you as well. That is definitely, it makes sense that it's your favorite single issue of the year. I ultimately, and now I think we both enjoyed this issue, but I ultimately believe I like this a bit more than you did when we first talked about it, because you felt it wasn't deserve it of the fact that this was such a milestone issue, and issue 900 of Amazing Spider-Man. But I went with Amazing Spider-Man #6 or Legacy 900 as my favorite single issue this year. Art was by Ed McGuinness on this issue, who recently just did the first issue of the Dark Web Spider-Man issue that we just talked about last week. And I mean, not only did you have great Ed McGuinness art on this, and they kind of had like a flashback story from like the original, like early issues of Amazing Spider-Man with him and that robot. I just liked that this was the best representation of who Spider-Man is as a hero and character for that matter that I've gotten this year, despite enjoying Amazing Spider-Man as much as I did. As a one-shot issue with them telling this story, I just think in terms of characterization, it fucking like you know, like honestly, it was so good, this characterization of Spider-Man in this. Honestly, for me personally, I was like,
no, yeah,
it's not going to get any better. I was grinning from ear to ear reading this, and I was like, yes, this is who this character is. He gets it.
Yeah, wasn't that his birthday? Or
yeah,
no?
Yes, that was his birthday.
Yeah, that's the issue. That one hit you in the feels.
Yes, and that's why I think ultimately I went with it, because it you know, it left me like kind of like, and not only that, like I remember just like, wow, I was like, wow, like almost like you got a reaction out of the Dark Knights of Steel. Like mine was just like, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's who he is. That's who this character gets it. Like, and I was just like, from there on, you know, Zeb Wells could do no wrong for me in terms of like him writing this character. And this is 6 issues in. And even though I liked the first arc, it was like, you know, it was whatever, Tombstone gangster story, whatever, you know, it had John Romita back on the art and everything else. I was like, okay, yeah, you know, I'm liking this. This seems familiar. And we were just so happy to get out of the Beyond time with Ben Reilly that I was taking whatever they were giving me at that point for Spider-Man. I'm like, yeah, it could be mediocre as far as I'm concerned, honestly. But I was just like, wow, this is so much better than it was before, right? But then
when you're in the desert, a glass of water is fucking the best thing out there.
Right.
That's the best drink you'll ever have.
That's right. That's right.
We were in the desert there during the Beyond.
Right. But then this issue came along and I was like, okay, this guy gets the character. So when I was thinking of single issues, I thought about the one you mentioned. I thought about a couple other things as well, but this ultimately rose to the top for me. And that's Amazing Spider-Man 6, Zeb Wells run, or Legacy 900, as they like to refer to them, right? So there you go. So that's favorite single issue. All right, favorite new to me. Now, this is something that we didn't necessarily end up reading on the show. It could be something old. It could be something new and current, but something that we didn't necessarily read or talk about on the show. This is a series that I kind of read a couple of issues here and there, but Chris has kind of been sticking with this series and talking about it on the show, and he got me interested in checking it out. I've kind of popped in now and then and read it digitally and kind of discussed it with Chris on later weeks. But I picked up the first volume of the trade of this, and I absolutely loved it. And that's She-Hulk by Rainbow Rowell and Jen Bartel, I think, does the covers, and illustrated by Roge Antonio and Luca Maresca. The reason I love this is because the tone of this book is unlike any other book I read. It's a kind of like just a delightful kind of spending time with this character type of story. Honestly, like it has great art in it, great covers consistently by Jen Bartel, and again, just really good characterization, and it's fun. And it's like unlike all the other superhero comics that are coming out. Like the first 6 issues, she didn't punch, you know, like one bad guy, I feel like, in the face, other than like Titania or whatever, and that was just to get their aggression out on each other.
Yeah, their Fight Club.
Right. So like, you know, like, and I think the tone of the show is very similar to this book. Like, so, and I really love the show that came out this year as well. So I gotta say, like, that's one that I didn't initially read, that I ended up picking up the trade of and reading off the show. And then since then I've come back and read a couple issues here and there with Chris, but I always had the intentions of checking it out because this writer wrote The Runaways prior to this, which I really enjoyed her run of The Runaways through Marvel, which I also read in trade. But yeah, that's my favorite new to me that I didn't initially pick up and read on the show this year. So I gotta give a shout out to She-Hulk.
Okay, I might have misunderstood this new to me. Like I thought it was just stuff we've read from the past. Was that to be something out from this year that was new to me?
No. It could have been something from the past. It could have been something here. I
read a lot of old stuff there. Like I read that Hellions run. Yeah. I read some of the Black Cat Mary Jane, or the Black Cat trades that you got me, the Maestro trades, Kingdom Come, a whole bunch of other stuff there. And I did enjoy all of it. But once again, the thing I liked the most there was that Spider-Man where Renew Your Vows.
Nice.
It was just kind of taking Spider-Man, if he followed his life after One More Day. I know he's in an Elseworld there, but once again, that was another one where they kind of had those renew your vows. You think it's all about him trying to marry, or renewing the vows with Mary Jane, but he's just renewing his vows of responsibility. and I thought that was great there. Another one by Stegman. He did a lot of art in there, and it's the first time. I don't know if that's the first time he had those Stegman eyes that he uses in Vanish with the eyes smoking. But I thought it was great there, and that's the one I went with for that.
Nice pick. Yeah.
But if it wasn't that, it would be Do Your Power Bomb with something from this year that I didn't read that, just from what you're talking about the whole time.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great pick. No. This was new to me, was like anything that we read away from the show, essentially.
Okay.
I just ended up picking up something that you talked about on the show, because like it was one of my favorite things that I read. Well, not for the show, that I read away from the show that I liked that came out this year, but it doesn't have to be current. It's just something I didn't really necessarily talk on the show. And, like things that you would do, which you did talk about in recent reads on the show, was the Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. So yeah, anything like that. Yeah. So that counts for sure. Yeah. Great pick. I never actually read that series. I read the initial miniseries that came out. There was one miniseries that came out.
I
think it was.
It was like a 28 issue run or something that I read.
No, I know there was a miniseries that came out, I think, during Secret Wars. That was the Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. It was like a 5-issue miniseries, and then it spun into an ongoing.
Okay, maybe that was the first one. I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe there's something else there.
Yeah. So I never read the ongoing series where Stegman was doing it. So I might have to check that out, because I have heard good things about that. Yeah, no, for sure. All right, Chris, you're up next with favorite underrated book. So maybe a book that didn't get a lot of attention in the, not one of the big two. It's not like Amazing Spider-Man or something that's well known, right? Or maybe a book you thought maybe you didn't give a lot of love to this year that you enjoyed. But yeah, favorite.
Favorite underrated. I know it's a mini series. It's The Exterminators.
Yeah,
I think that was great. Like, it's a fun story, great art, great characters in there, a little bit of cheesecake for the boys.
Yeah.
And for anybody else that likes that, and it's great.
Yeah, I'm definitely picking up the trade of that. Every time I put the art together for the show, I'm like, man, I missed out on this book. This looks great.
I know it's not over yet, but I think that's one of the most underrated ones there. I don't think anybody's buying.
Yeah.
And, it was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Good pick. I went with The Silver Coin, which is a book that I love talking about on the show. I think that was really great, but ultimately it's a book that came out from Image that is a horror anthology by, it has some big name writers that come in and write the issues, because every single issue is written by a different writer. Michael Walsh is no slouch either. He's worked for, he's done a lot of things over at Marvel. I wouldn't say he's a huge name, but he's well known enough. But I mean, the series just went on hiatus because he just had a kid this year, and he said he's stepping away from the book. This is a book that he obviously has been putting together and putting out the last couple of years through Image. And I guarantee you it's not one of their super top sellers, because it is a horror book. It is an anthology book. So therefore, I think I have to show it some love. But I really, really love this book, and I hope it comes back. I hope he revisits this after whatever, he gets his life sorted a little bit more. And, I'm sure thing is, like, if he's going to step away from this, I'm sure he's going to go pick up some more work for hire gigs, maybe for the big 2 companies and stuff like that. And who knows if he'll ever actually return to this book that he has been putting out, right? Because he was the main kind of creator behind this, right? And that's what happens with a lot of these guys, right? So I think you got to support these books. I bought all the issues, and this is the trade paperback that I'm showing you right now. I've double dipped and I've picked up the trade paperbacks. I've talked to this guy at the shows. I own art by him. That's why you got to support the creators you really enjoy that are doing this kind of stuff, right? Because a lot of these things are passion projects for these guys, right? So I mean, that's an underrated book. If I actually suggested this book to somebody recently in the store, and she ended up picking it up because she was looking for a horror book. I'm like, well, you got to check out Silver Coin. And she ended up picking it up. So, I like when I can do shit like that and suggest books to people that I enjoy, right? And, get people to pick them up as a result. So, yeah. All right. Favorite Marvel book. What did I have for this one? Okay. So because I gave Amazing Spider-Man my favorite ongoing series, I ultimately didn't go with this because it could have easily been also my favorite Marvel book. But what I picked was, and it's a bit of a cheat, I went with X-Men, but I'm going to say the line of X-Men books that I read, because like, honestly, I think that when Hickman left the X-Men titles as the creative kind of control of that, like, you know, the architect or whatever the fuck they were calling of the X-Men books, like I was really worried about the line because, you know, Hickman's a great writer and he was kind of driving the direction of all those titles at the time. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. And, you know, I still don't read all the titles. But, you know, between X-Men, the main title by Jerry Duggan, which I think is ultimately my pick in this category, that's been very consistent and enjoyable throughout the whole year. And, you know, I've even really liked Immortal X-Men at times, as well as X-Men Red, you know, prior to Magneto dying. I was reading that. So, like, I think the line of X-Men books has been pretty strong still, I think, without Hickman being involved. So I'm going to give my favorite Marvel book to X-Men, or the line of the X-Men books that I was reading, essentially, that came out this year. So yeah, I wanted to fit them in somewhere on this list, because although they, you know, they, even when it comes to favorites of the year, as you heard, like I've probably picked X-Men once this year as my favorite of the week or whatever, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't consistently good. It was consistently good. Same with Daredevil. Like I said, how good was Daredevil was. I've picked Daredevil like once, right? But it just depends on the weeks sometimes these books come out on, right? Or what you're feeling that week or whatever else. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But so shout out to the X-Men.
Yeah, I was going to throw it to Amazing Spider-Man too, but after hearing what you say there, I might have to throw it to the Hulk. I really like what was going on at the beginning of that spaceship Hulk. You know, I think it's falling off right now, personally, but
yeah,
you know, it's the end of the year, but I think all the good stuff that was going on. Look, what number are we at now? It can't be more than like 10 or 11.
I think it's 10. I think it's 10, I think.
Yeah, so for the majority of the Hulk was great. You know, Thor was up there too.
Yes.
I was reading some of the old Thor stuff, and that's it too. So, but I'll give it to the Hulk. I like that that stuff where he, like, you know, I think it was issue 3 or 4 where stuff was going on. You know, I did enjoy the Banner War, or the Hulk Banner War. That's good stuff too.
Did like that, yeah. And you've given you gave it 2 favorites of the week this year, like I said, as well.
Yep.
So representative in the numbers as well. So yeah, there you go. Nice. All right, Hulk. All right, next up. Like I said, though, I agree with you. I could have easily also given it to Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm like, you know, I got to spread the love around a little bit, right? But yeah, and I think we both. That's why I felt confident in picking the X-Men book, because I think we both really enjoyed the X-Men book this year, right? So yeah, it was a good one. Favorite DC book, Chris?
Once again, I can throw this to Batman.
Yeah,
but it's only been my favorite for like the last 5 or 6 issues.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I might have to throw it to DC versus Vampires.
Oh, wow.
That's been running for about the year now.
It has, yeah.
And like those covers have been killing it. The story's been great. You know, I just wish that fucking all-out war for DC versus Vampires was just more in line with what was going on there. But there's a lot of other stuff, like the Deathstroke. I thought that was good. The art for Deathstroke was great. And but I don't know. That's got to be ending too, because what are they going to do with Deathstroke now that after the events of Dark Crisis? I think like right now they have like kind of a year 1 throwback. Maybe when that's over, it's just going to be done. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to give it to DC versus Vampires. I would like to give it to Dark Knights of Steel, but that's from already back in 2021, because they're stretching that thing out so long.
Yeah, and ultimately, when it came down to, like, when I was talking about favorite writer and stuff like that too, like that affected it. Like I said, like if that book was coming out more consistently, like that may have even been my favorite. That book's like you said, from that issue 5 where we both made it our favorite of the week, and how fucking crazy that issue was.
Yeah, and then just stopped.
Right. And then it was like every 2 months, every 3 months. Like it was like, so that was issue 5 in March. Okay. Issue 9 comes out next week. How many issues is that?
Yeah, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. The thing should be over by now.
Right. That really killed the flesh. That's what I mean. That kind of stuff can really kill it. For us, like when we talk about these things weekly, like it can. And like I have no doubt at the end of the day, when I go back and I have it all collected, all the issues, or it comes out in a hardcover and I pick it up, like, it's gonna be fantastic. But like when you're talking about it like the way we do week to week, yeah, it does affect the quality of the book as a result.
Yeah, it loses momentum.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a shame. It's a shame because that would have been an easy pick for me too earlier on in the year for favorite book of the year. But in that sense, I got to go with my favorite, most consistently enjoyed book from DC Comics. That should come as no surprise, and that's Nightwing. Yeah, this is my favorite DC book. I got it. He's like, I don't understand it, but
no, I understand it. It's only had one bad issue freaking since it's been out. Well, there's a couple, but
yeah, not to the point where I'm like, fuck this book. Yeah,
I just don't like Nightwing. But anyways, talked about that before. No need to rehash old things.
Yeah, Nightwing. That's my favorite DC book that came out this year. All right. Favorite other publisher book.
Oh, easy one for me.
Yeah,
it might be a harder one for you because I don't read too many outside publishers. I read a bit of Image stuff.
Yeah. I mostly read in terms of other publishers that we talk about on the show. Because most of the other publisher type stuff I don't pick up in singles anyways. I pick up the collected editions. So most of the other publisher stuff I read on the show is Image and sometimes a Dark Horse book. So yeah. But for me, I don't have an issue in front of me to show off, but it's Deadly Class. This is a book that was one of my favorite books for years and years and years. I picked it as my favorite book 3 times this year. It literally just ended like last month. It stuck the landing. I thought it was a fantastic last issue. So yeah, I mean, like, it's been in my life for so long, and it was so sad to see it go, but it was just consistently one of my favorite things that came out the whole time it was out on the shelves. So when I thought of other publishers, I almost gave it to Do a Power Bomb, but then there were so many other categories that I could have put Do a Power Bomb in, and I was just like, yeah, no, ultimately, like, this is my favorite book, like one of my favorite books of the past like several years since it's been out. So like I had to give it to Deadly Class. And then I looked at the numbers and I picked it 3 times this year as my favorite book of the year, even though even that book like was every couple of months it would come out. So like it just goes to show you. And it stuck the landing. 56 issues for a fucking Image book. That's a big feat, man. That they do not do things like that anymore. These Image books, they don't go that long. It's not like the days of like Vertigo where you had like your Sandmans and shit that would go like 60 something issues. They relaunch fucking books for no reason nowadays when it comes to the big 2. It's just like, oh look, there's an anniversary issue relaunch. You know what I mean? Like it's just like yeah, number 1, right? Just put it out there. So the fact that this same writer and artist worked on this book for the last 7-8 years consistently and put out 56 issues from Image is a huge accomplishment. That alone is a huge accomplishment. So I had to give it to Deadly Class.
Okay, for me, I don't read too much of outside of the big 2, but I have read a bit of some Image stuff. I've read a lot of the Spawns, the Gunslinger, the King Spawn, Scorched. Scorched might be up there, but for one that's really caught my attention has to be Vanish. I friggin' it's got to be there, like even though it's only issue number 4, but it's picking up steam, and I'm down for that.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick, and it's got one of your favorite artists now.
Great artist there, and he's a writer, and
yeah,
I'll take it. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, can't blame you on that. Yeah, it's been very good, very good. All right, so Chris, here we go. Here's some of the more negative categories here, guys. So strap in, Chris. Your least favorite artist of this past year. We're see. So I changed the wording on this. We're not gonna say worst. We're gonna say least favorite in your opinion this past year. Someone you didn't really love.
Okay. So I don't know any of the names of the ones I don't like, but it's basically anybody that does those B covers or the B stories in, I think it was in Wonder Woman or Batman, all that cartoony stuff. But the worst, the least favorite has to be Bagley on Spider-Man right now. Like, yeah. I know he's done some great stuff, or I look back on, he's been on Spider-Man before. He's been there for some great runs, but I don't know, man. He's not working for this Spider-Man series. Yeah. And he had, I think I didn't like him last year either. He had the worst issue of Spider-Man last year too. But like I say, I don't like the bag on Bagley, but that's who I chose.
I don't blame you. I mean, he's got a very old school looking style, and not in a good way. Like it's kind of very plain, very lame looking most of the time.
It's like, do they call on this guy when they just need someone to freaking phone it in?
Well, it's not even. I think he's just a super fast artist.
Exactly. Yeah, he just does everything quickly, and it's like, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Boom. What do you want? Here, I need 3 issues. Here, poof.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say it didn't come out this year. It came out last year, but Chip Zdarsky did a mini series called Spider-Man Life Story, where every issue was from the 60s to today's time. And he was the artist for that book. I was like, this is a good artist for this book, because you are going to chronicle, the look of it made sense. Even when he got to modern day, maybe not as much, because like we said, he doesn't look like a great modern day artist, but at the same time, it was okay, I understand, if you're gonna go with this artist from back then all the way up till now, he did a great serviceable job. But other than that, yeah, him on this Spider-Man book, if you're trying to drum up interest on a big event, that's a trilogy to the Spider-Verse shit, and you got fucking Bagley on it, that's not interesting to me.
Yeah, if you're trying to run Spider-Man, from the friggin' Todd McFarlane days, and this is who you bring, no way.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, no, I can't blame you on that. I actually went through my head when I was making this pick, to be honest with you, just because I'm not a fan of his really that much either. But ultimately I looked back at the issues that came out this year, and it's funny because when I looked up this artist's contributions from this past year, this is the only issue he drew this year. So I don't know if that's an indication that this guy is not getting more work or what. This is one that me and you one of the few times we've completely disagreed on a book. And you picked this as your favorite of the week when it came out. That's that DC versus Vampires killer issue, the one shot. You picked it as your favorite of the week. I absolutely disliked it, and the artist on it was a big reason for that. The artist's name is Hisham Habchi Pyru. Or Rao. I don't know what this fucking name is, but it's weird because I was surprised you liked it, because the cartoon, it was way too fucking cartoony, the art style, even for me.
I might have to look back and see what's going on. It was the one with Damian Wayne on the cover?
No, that was Hunters. This is the one with Harley on the cover. DC.
Okay, I'll take a look back at it.
Killers. I even went back and checked out the clip on the episode where it was mentioned to see what I said about it, because I was just looking up different books that came out this year, and I was just yeah, I dislike the art on this, and you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad, I liked it. I was surprised even then that you liked it, because I felt it was way too cartoony. You usually don't like cartoony, but you picked that as your favorite of the week that week, and
isn't that where she had Solomon Grundy and Clayface as her
and she picked
not her henchmen, but just kind of following her around.
Yes, and then she picked up Clayface at one time, and it was a piece of shit, and she thought it was Clayface. We talked about this on the show. There was some funny stuff in it, but I ultimately,
that's why maybe it was more story, not so much art.
I don't know. I disliked it, and you really enjoyed it. You gave your favorite of the week that week, and then I looked up the art, because it's a weird name of the artist too. So I was like, has this person done anything else? And I didn't see any other work that came out this year from the artist, so I don't know, but I gave it ultimately. I know that sounds like a deep cut, guys, but there's a lot of great artists out there, and it takes a lot for me to really dislike them. But that artist did not do it for me this year for whatever reason on that issue. So yeah, there you go. All right, going on to least favorite issue. This was hard, but then when I thought of it, I was like, oh, of course it's got to be this fucking issue. Now that Spider-Man issue that we had quite a few drinks before we recorded that one time did not come out this year, sadly, because that was the first thing I thought of. They came out November or December, because I remember it was a Christmas issue. Remember, it was
So it was right before the end, so it was an easy pick.
That was a horrible fucking issue of Amazing Spider-Man, though, guys. It was Spider-Man Beyond era, and it was
he went in the hospital and he went in the basement, and
well, I don't think we've ever shit on it. Maybe because we had quite a bit of drink that night before we recorded, but
I imagine Mary Jane didn't have any superpowers at that time, for sure.
We completely fucking trashed that book, though. When
that was garbage.
That was garbage. And so anyways, the one that I completely trashed, though, I'm way on my own this year, that I hated. It ruined the whole miniseries for me. It was a 3-issue miniseries that came out from DC Black Label. And I looked back, and surprisingly, I gave one of my favorites of the week to the first or second issue of this series as well. And that was Suicide Squad Blaze. The third issue was so fucking bad that it ruined the whole series. like the first issue was good, the second issue was great. Like they're both great issues. I think the second issue is the one that I gave the pick of the week, a favorite of the week to, because it was when Peacemaker pulled out that guy's pube or whatever, and we had a good laugh about it. Remember, like he like fucking to seize this guy's pube. He's like, I seized the enemy pube or whatever. They were trying to get DNA of this bad guy in the book. The third issue was such a departure, I felt like, from the first two. I didn't have no idea what was going on. The art was fucking horrendous all of a sudden in it. That was also a contender for my least favorite art of the year. But yeah, Suicide Squad Blaze #3, which they completely shit the bed on the last issue. And I really enjoyed that series. And then the third one was such a bad issue. I was just like, yeah, this series is garbage. Like I completely turned my back on it after that issue. So yeah, that's my least favorite issue of the year right there. Go ahead, Chris.
Once again, I can't just put it to one issue. It had to be that freaking Harley Quinn August freaking weekly series.
Yeah.
That was brutal. And I'm glad that freaking whole story is turned around. But yeah, you can pick any one of those four. I know I could be the fourth one is the worst because it's the fourth one, and the first one is the worst because it's the first.
Yeah.
But all those four in the summer were bad. And like I say, the only good thing is that they came out weekly and it was over quick.
Great pick. That is good. I agree with you. That was bad. And then it was so bad that like, this newest arc was it's so good in comparison. I was like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like,
yeah, like why would they freaking stall this story they have coming out now? But anyways, yeah, that's up to them.
Yeah. All right. So, Chris, least favorite writer of the year.
Oof, that's an easy one for me.
I have my
Benjamin Percy.
Yeah.
Like I was looking back on that X Lives of Wolverine. Did he do both of those series? Like one was worse, one was a bit better than the other. But like I thought that was gonna be like some freaking life-changing stuff, and it has nothing to do with anything, and it's garbage.
Great.
And then yeah, that freaking I don't know if that surfs up that what really got me the hate on was that
was him too.
That was Point Break that Point Break homage. I don't know what you want to call it. Freaking he's surfing. Come on. I don't know if that was this year or not, but
I don't either. It was at the start of the year or was it at the end of last year, but it was very close. Yeah,
we've done enough garbage this year too. Like,
yeah, oh man, I almost want to call it an audible and take the pick you have. That is such a good fucking pick. The thing is, you know why I didn't think of him? Because I've totally left all his books. I was like, I don't read them anymore. So there's maybe a reason why I didn't think of him, right? Who I picked, and she's not terrible, but she's just not great. So I'll say who I was going to pick, but I actually agree with Chris. I think that should be the pick, really. But who I was going to pick originally was this Swedish woman, this Torun Gronbeck woman. She's the one that wrote Jane Foster and the Mighty Thor series.
Yeah.
Which I read. I think I read the first issue. You continue to read it. And you
said, I read the whole thing, and I'd agree with you there too.
She wrote the Valkyrie series prior to this year, and then she went and wrote that one. So that's why I didn't continue with that one, because I didn't like her Valkyrie series. And she also wrote the Punisher War Journal one-shots this year. One of them was okay. I remember liking one of them, but the other one wasn't very good. And now she's being forced on us in the current arc of Thor when Donny Cates is not around, right? Which even the Thanos issue that just came out recently was just like, okay. I wouldn't say she's horrible or bad. She's just very mediocre. And I feel like they keep putting her on titles, like making her a big, like they're trying to push her really hard. Like, and she even co-wrote the Valkyrie Thor stuff prior to, him leaving the series with Jason Aaron. But like, it felt like Jason Aaron was doing most of the heavy lifting at that point. Right. So like, it was just like when he left and she started doing her own things, I was just like, wow, she's actually not that great of a writer, like in my opinion. So like, and they're trying to push her, like they're putting her in fucking Donny Cates Thor for the next few issues, right? And we even looked at the solicits in this last episode, and we said like, oh look, there's like Doctor Doom showing up. They keep doing cool things in that book. Thanos is showing up, but if I keep reading these things and they're mediocre, then like there's a problem, because you're getting all the best characters. You're on a fucking super hot title, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, they're giving you the toys, but you're not playing with them right.
Yeah, so I had to give it to her ultimately for my pick, but like I
That
said,
is a good one too, though. That Jane Foster was freaking garbage.
yeah, you did say as much, so as such. So, but yeah, like I said, I almost want to pull the audible and give it to Ben Percy, and because like
I'm pulling audible. We could switch if you like.
early in the year, like I've had enough of all your books, but I'm leaving. I stopped reading X-Force. I stopped reading Wolverine. I read both of them, right? I was just like, yeah, these.
The good thing is Wolverine it seems to be picking up, but
that's what I've been hearing. So I mean, yeah, no, for sure. All right, favorite event.
Oof, that's a tough one.
It was a tough one, and I didn't love any events this year, like wholeheartedly. Like I didn't love any of them. I enjoyed certain aspects of some. I got to give it to, and I checked, and half of this event came out this year, so I'm gonna still count it, and that's Devil's Reign. I'm gonna give it Devil's Reign. I'll say for the reason being, Marco Cicchetto was on art during Devil's Reign, the main event, and the spin out titles that they had were a lot of fun. I like Devil's Reign X-Men a lot. We talked about that. Phil Noto, that one. That was a great miniseries.
That was a good one.
There's the Devil's Reign Superior 4 book where the Doc Ock came, the multiversal Doc Ock, and like grabbed like a bunch of different, like that was a lot of fun. So yeah, and I didn't read it, but you read it and you said you had a lot of fun with it. That was the Heroes for Hire one, I think, too, as well. Yeah. So I'm gonna give it to Devil's Reign because ultimately it was a small event within the Daredevil books, and when it ended, I remember us feeling mostly positive about it. Although when the book got relaunched, it kind of struggled for a bit, and it took a while for that book to come out. And now I think it's finally last couple issues has gotten to a place where everything he kind of pre-established prior to this point is now finally clicking, I think, and actually taking, like happening now for him in that book. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to that because I think by the end of it, like I thought it was like a 4 out of 5 consistent event where it was just in like, yeah, this isn't breaking the wheel, like this isn't like, you know what I mean, like the most original thing I've ever seen or whatever. But in terms of like as far as events go, yeah, I thought it was pretty solid. So I'm gonna give it to Devil's Reign.
Yeah, but like you say, for the events, it was hard to choose the events, and I'm not sure what we're like talking about. Will you talk about like Reckoning War? You think that would be an event?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all on the same page. Like the big ones: Judgment Day, Dark Crisis.
Yes.
Yeah, but they're still not my favorite. They're okay, not my favorite. I think really what my favorite was, it had to be the Thor Hulk Banner War.
Yes, good one.
I did like seeing freaking whatever Thor get hulked out and then Hulk get freaking Thored out, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And it was a bit of it wasn't earth shattering series, but it was a fun series, like it was like the Marvel Capcom, just boom, watch them beat the crap out of each other.
That if I didn't pick Devil's Reign, that was probably going to be my pick as well as that one. And then I thought about Axe for a moment because some of the one shots that happened in some
they were good.
Right. But then ultimately I don't give a shit about the fucking Eternals. So that sunk it like not on my like I was as soon as I started thinking about the Eternals, I'm like, I can't pick this. Like I thought there was some good stuff in it, but I'm like, nah. And then also I feel like Dark Crisis was no for sure, no. And so yeah, I think that the one you went with ultimately, would have been my second pick. That's a good one for sure.
Like even with Judgment Day, nothing. They say it's going to change the world. You don't hear anything about that. X-Men, there's nothing about Judgment Day going on. They might reference it, but nothing happened.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. All right, and all right, 2 more categories to go here. Favorite anthology, Chris.
This was a tough one here. I just got to say, it might not be one that I buy at all, but my favorite. Well, I guess you might have a lot more experience on these. You might read more anthology ones, but I think 2000 AD is a good one there. I just got to read more of it. I don't know if I'm reading current ones or not, but they're always those kind of, like Twilight Zone type of stories. But if we're talking more true anthologies that were going on, my favorite anthology had to be Amazing Fantasy 1000, I think it was. Whatever stories that were in there, yeah. Can't go wrong with that.
Yep. Agree 1,000%.
I thought you throw some like one of the silver coins or something like that.
So originally I was gonna go with Silver Coin because that is a true anthology series. But when I thought of like one issue anthologies like they do with their celebrations and all that, this was the first thing I thought of, and because this was the most well-rounded anthology single shot. You know, because they had the Harley 30th anniversary, which was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was okay, but it wasn't no amazing, whatever, right. Amazing fantasy.
There's so many ones like this that they come out with throughout the year, both companies, where it's just like they'll put 10 stories in them, and like 3 of them might be good, 4 of them mediocre, and then 3 of them will be shit. You know what I mean? Like it's always like the same type of thing. But this one, almost every single fucking story in this book was good, from the story and to the art to, like, you know what I mean? The whole thing. I remember we both made this our favorite of the week when it came out. It was a small week. It was like a 4 or 5 issue week when this came out. It was like on the 5th week or something. But this was an awesome fucking anthology issue of a character we both love, obviously. So I had to give it to Amazing Fantasy. But you're right, Silver Coin was there on my list, but then I thought to put it in the underrated section. So I was gonna give love to that no matter what. But yeah, Amazing Fantasy 1000. Yeah, there we go. We're on the same wavelength with that one for sure. All right, and here's the last category here, guys. Book of the year. Ultimately, considering everything, what was our book of the year? And this is a big one, man. I did think long and hard about this one. Maybe not enough, but I did think on it. And almost gave it to Amazing Spider-Man. But I had to take everything into consideration with this. The fact that it's artist on the book, how much I love the book, and then I went to the numbers a little bit, and I looked like, you know, I picked this 5 times out of 7 issues, guys. I got to go with Do a Powerbomb for my favorite, my book of the year this year, which is, you know, this is an artist I was highly anticipating whatever he ended up coming out with this year. I'm a huge fan of his. It had wrestling in it. It had, you know, great art in it. I mean, this is just it's a nice combination of things I enjoy, as the artist writer of this book enjoys as well. And it, you know, it had a nice ending. Like his books, he always kind of injects like a lot of heart into them as well, I feel like, at the end, which I'm also a sucker for that kind of shit. So ultimately I had to go with that, because Amazing Spider-Man, you know, there's certain issues, you know, it has its ups and downs. I think in terms of superheroes series that came out this year, though, as you can tell, I also picked that book 5 times. Chris picked it 8. Consistently, it was one of my favorite books of the year, and it's one of my favorite characters. If Batman Zdarsky was on for the full year, that could have been my favorite book of the year, quite honestly. But that one, I think this next year, if Zdarsky stays on the book, it's going to be a fucking major contender for book of the year next year, especially if they keep putting hot artists on it. So yeah, so these are ones I considered when talking about book of the year, but it's hard to argue with the hit rate and the way that I hyped this book up on the show for the last several issues that just came out, right? It's hard to argue that this isn't my book of the year. So yeah, Do a Powerbomb by Daniel Warren Johnson.
Good choice. Yeah. But like I said, the way I looked at this, if I could only buy one comic all year,
yeah.
What can I say?
Good pick. Yep.
You know, I know it's hard to say. It's hard to put it in for book of the year.
It is.
You know, it's hard to choose. Like, you know, if you want one whole series, if there's one issue that really freaking put it out there. But, you know, I'm still looking forward to what's coming up in Spider-Man. You know, they gotta freaking explain that stupid crater one of these days. Like, freaking 6-7 months now.
But to your point, they have not, and you're still loving the book.
Exactly.
I just want to point that out, because I remember when at first you were really upset about it, and I said, you know what, it's going to get to a point where it's not even going to fucking matter anymore, and as long as they keep telling good stories, you know, it'll always be in the back of your mind. But it's like, I'll tell you, Jason Aaron did the same thing when he was writing Thor. There was a whole fucking year or two where he was not worthy all of a sudden. He couldn't hold the hammer, and then Jane Foster Thor became Thor. And for like a whole year, they didn't reveal who Thor was. Like, she didn't take off her mask, although it kind of, like, everybody mostly guessed at that point. But I remember, like, how pissed I was at first about that. I'm like, how can you do this and switch up the fucking character? And there was like so many haters about it at that time. That's where all these fucking comic haters came out of the woodworks. You're like, oh, fucking woman Thor, what's going on? Blah, 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 this bullshit. I was just like, no, listen, I'm here for the journey. If you were going to tell a good story, I'm here for it. I don't care how we get there, right? And like, look, now they've worked her into the film. As bad as that movie did in theaters, it did really bad. I enjoyed it, but yeah. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But as long as you're kind of taking me for the ride and it's an enjoyable ride, then I'll let you fucking tell me what happened 20 issues later. That's what Jason Aaron did with that Thor, right? So
one of the best things about Thor going on now is having Odin in his hammer.
Yeah,
that's there's a category about, you know, I don't know if that's the best thing, but I'm loving Odin in the hammer.
Maybe we should add one next year if we do it.
I don't even know what kind of category you talk about that, but
best comic book concept or something like that.
The best voice of the year, I don't know, but
yeah,
Odin in the hammer is the best thing. You know, I was just thinking about that the other day. You know, he's always freaking tearing him down all the time, but then when he's getting beaten up, he's like, "Get up, you bum! You could do this." I think that's great, but that's besides the point. But anyways, yes, book of the year. I have to go with Spidey.
That's comic book concept.
Amazing Spider-Man.
And then best panel of the year is probably a good one for next time too. Yeah,
ooh, that'd be a tough one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. These are things I might have to keep in the back of my head and start writing down throughout the year, so it makes it easier. But yeah, this was fun. This was good, man. I liked it. It was a good discussion, actually. Yeah, this was.
I guess this is talking comics.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So there's the Comic Shop Talk Awards of 2022, guys. There you go. That's some of our favorite things that we discussed this past year. And you know that even though, like, you know, there's so many things we didn't get to talk about here.
Oh, for sure.
Highlight so many things. Like there's a lot of, you know, I mean, there's a lot of great things still that didn't make our list. And then there's also a lot of middling, mediocre type shit that didn't make our list too, right? And that makes sense. So but here, let me just ramble this off to end us off with here. I got another stat here. So I told you how many things we read this year. I told you what our favorites, our top fives, our top threes of favorites are this past year. Here, this is what Chris had here, though. Let's take a trip down memory lane here, Chris. All right, you read this year. Action
Spotify Wrapped.
All Out Avengers, Amazing Fantasy, 1000, Amazing Spider-Man, Avengers Assemble, Avengers 1,000,000 BC, Avengers Forever, Axe Judgment Day Omega, Axe Avengers, Axe X-Men, Axe Eve of Judgment, Batman Beyond Neo Year, Batman Beyond the White Knight, Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo, Batman Catwoman, Batman Spawn, Batman Superman's World's Finest, Batman versus Robin, Black Widow, Captain America Zero, Captain America Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Carnage Forever, Catwoman, Crypt of Shadows, Daredevil Woman Without Fear, Dark Ages, Dark Crisis, and then a bunch of tie-ins: Dark Knights of Steel, Dark Web, Darth Vader, DC versus Vampires All at War, Hunters, Killers, Deceased, Deadpool, Death Dealer. Do you remember that? Frank Frazetta?
Yeah. What that new Vanish was like a Death Dealer's homage cover or something.
Yeah. Death of Doctor Strange, Deathstroke. You even read some Demon Days, Detective Comics, Devil's Reign, and all the tie-ins. You read all the tie-ins for this: Winter Soldier, Villains for Hire, Spider-Man, X-Men, Do a Powerbomb, Dynamite Never Dies, Edge of Spider-Verse, Elektra, Black, White, and Blood. Huh?
You're only on E.
E. Anyways, I was just giving. I'm not gonna read everything, but I'm just like, look at it. This is a
kind of stuff out there for everybody.
Yeah, all kinds of things, right? So I just wanted to give you a small rundown of like all the series there. Like I said, 150 fucking different books that we read.
I got books all over the place here. I know what it's about.
I think it's going to be shaping up to be like a different year this next year, at least. Maybe not in things we talk about, but the books we're going to amass, but we'll see how it goes.
Who knows? I try and say no, but freaking my wallet keeps on saying yes.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this show, though. Thank you for checking it out. If you did check this out, this was a lot of fun. Chris, I hope you enjoyed it there. And
I did. Thank you.
I do enjoy doing the lists. I do enjoy those lists and these stats there for you guys. So who knows what the next year will hold, but we'll have to start keeping track of that one. And will anything overtake Amazing Spider-Man for us this year, right? Because if it wasn't for this little mini series, me and Chris would just be both just amazing Spider-Man, all these categories. Right? Will it continue to be as consistently good as it was? I mean, like I said, I think Batman has a great year ahead of it.
Great time.
Daredevil should have a great year ahead of it. I mean, there are some big things. And if fucking Dark Knights of Steel ever continues to come out again, that, you know, that would be good too. Deceased. Yeah, man. It's good stuff.
I hear good things about Dark Knights of Steel, though.
Like
what's big stuff happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen, they can continue to do this. They've created a world for this book where I think you can do more stories in this. Like, there's all these different kingdoms and everything else, right?
Right. Three kingdoms are going to be fighting, and then the real villain, or the man in green, or whoever, he's going to show up, and they're all going to have to fight him.
Yes.
But anyways, we'll see.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks again. And thank you, Chris. And happy New Year. And we'll see you guys. We're going to be coming back for the week of January 4th with Comic Shop Talk, where we'll be talking about December 28th list, as well as January 4th new comic book list, all in the same episode. So
stay tuned. Double size #1.
That's right. All right, guys. Later.
Cheers.